This is Mavis Kanye for the Black Middletown Project. This is the second interview. When you came to Muncie in 1908, what things did you bring with you?
We brought all of our household, most all our furniture, and it come by train. And then some of us was brought biking in them, or some of us was brought by wagon, I think. I think that if I was quite young, but I think some of us was brought by wagon, but we come by train from Chicago.
Okay. Now I'd like to ask you, so basically you brought your furniture and
clothing, things like that.
Okay. Now I want to ask you a few questions about occupation. When you came to Muncie, did you feel that you were held back because of racial discrimination?
To a certain extent, yes.
In what ways?
Well, in a lot of ways, because Muncie was a very prejudiced place at that particular time. It wasn't allowed in theaters, parks, and things like that. Although the schools were all right. But I started in a Longfellow school, and it was a mixed school. We never had the segregated schools here.
But because of your job?
Things like that.
Were there many white people who did their work?
Yes, there were quite a few, I think, to my knowledge.
Do you know if they were paid the same salary as you?
Yes, I think so. See, at that time, the only work for blacks was in private families and factories. Chauffeurs and maids and cooks.
Was there many foreigners in Muncie at the time?
Not in my knowledge, no.
What did you do if you wanted to get more pay on your job? Did you ever ask for a raise?
Automatically on my job where I was, we got an increase. I say like at home, like Christmas time.
Okay. Now I want to ask you a little bit about education. You said you went to Longfellow, which is where is that?
It's on Highland Avenue.
Okay. Can you describe it for me, the school?
Well, it was just the elementary school. You went to the 9th grade there at that particular time.
Okay. Do you remember how many classrooms or the size of the school generally?
Oh, it was a large school because we had about 10 classrooms.
So about how many teachers were there?
Well, we went from the 1st to the 9th and we had teachers for every grade besides the music teacher.
Was there, how did you feel about education? Did you want to go to school?
Yes, I wanted to go to school.
How far did you go?
I went to the 9th grade.
To the 9th grade. Did you want to go further?
I wanted to go further, but at that particular time, I wasn't able to go on to high. I was ready for high school then. After Longfellow, you went to the 9th grade in Longfellow. Then you were ready to go to high school. But then after I couldn't go to high school, I went at night, taking typing and English at the Central at night school.
Would you say that was common to a lot of people?
Yes, at that time.
A lot of people wanted to go further. And what were some of the subjects you remember that you studied?
Well, in the elementary school, we had spelling, arithmetic, geography, hygiene, and history, art, writing.
Do you remember reading any books about black people?
Not in that time at all.
Or any by black people?
No.
Can you remember the names of any books you read?
Well, the most of our books, we would Longfellow. We had a lot of Longfellow poetry, and we read a lot of some of Shakespeare, not very much of Shakespeare. We didn't read very much. We got to the ninth grade. No blacks at all. I can't remember any.
Do you remember the names of any of the textbooks that you used?
I can't remember the geography. I can't remember the names of our books that we read.
Mm-hmm. Do you happen to have any? Did you save any old books in school?
No, I haven't. I did save them for a long, long time. And my mother had a fire, and they all got burned up in the fire. I burned books and all of it.
Okay. Did whites discourage education for black people? Did whites discourage education of black people?
No, not at that time. They encouraged education for all. Because the schools were mixed, and I think it was up to the individual to learn.
So you had both black and white teachers?
No black teachers at all. Never had black teachers until after. I just don't know, because when my son came out of Ball State, they wasn't hiring black teachers. They all had to leave and come back in, and I told you that.
Right. Did you go to school with a particular job in mind? Like you go to school to study to be a certain thing?
I always wanted to be a teacher. That's what I wanted to be.
Did many blacks who graduated go on to study beyond high school at that time?
I can't remember anyone that went on at that particular time. I went on to high school. I can't remember anyone.
You said your son attended college, right? Ball State. And anywhere else?
Wayne University in Michigan.
Okay. Did your parents go to school?
They lived in Ohio. My mother went, I think she said the sixth or seventh grade. So she was well read. But my father didn't go quite that far. And he was very well not have had the education. He was very well, memorized things, and a beautiful handwriting, and wonderful in math. If you give him a problem, he could solve it in his head quicker than you could with a pencil.
Can you name some of the black colleges that you knew of when you were growing up?
Wilberforce and Barbara Scotia in Carolina. And in Washington, here like college in Washington.
Was it Howard?
Howard.
Do you know about any others?
I know a lot of the
What was the name of the school in North Carolina?
Barbara Scotia.
Barbara Scotia.
After my daughter-in-law finished. I think it's a Presbyterian school, if I'm not mistaken.
When you were growing up, which blacks were most likely to go to college? Did you say the children of laborers or businessmen? Or
well, I don't know. At that particular time, I just couldn't tell you. Just how many was active at that time.
Did many black college graduates come back to Muncie to work and live if they had gone away to school?
Only one, as I know.
And that was Doris Faulkner. And to your knowledge, most other blacks didn't come back after.
All that I know of didn't come back. There might have been some that I didn't know of but later, but at that particular time, they wasn't.
How did you get back and forth to school?
We walked because we only just got 4 or 5 blocks.
Were you punished in school? No. What were most of the children punished for?
I think for whispering and things like that, talking out in grades on that.
Do you remember what kinds of punishments they had?
Well, at that particular time, they made them go stand out in the hall. They very seldom used paddle, but sometimes in the older grades, I think they used paddle. I think the principal used paddle, which I thought wasn't right.
Did you ever feel that black kids were punished more than white children?
Sometimes they were, yes.
Can you think of any black families where the entire family worked for one white family over the years? Where all the blacks in one family have worked for a particular white family. Say you and maybe as you got older, your daughter took your place and just kept it in the family. No? Why did blacks lose their jobs? What were some of the reasons?
You mean in private families or in factories?
Any job.
I just couldn't answer that. I really don't know why they lost their job. Don't know, but at that particular time, I mean, why? Because at that time, most all the help in private families and chauffeurs and things was black, and they wasn't fired very often. They didn't lose their jobs very often because they had at that particular time in the private families, the best of blacks had those jobs. And they could rely on them because they were the best of, people that had those jobs. Because they couldn't get any other jobs. If they could have gotten jobs other than that, see, they would have had them.
Did many black workers have black bosses?
See, well, the Indiana Steel and Wire Company had, I think, 2 black bosses. One in the electric department and the one in the wire drawing department.
Do you think black workers prefer to work for black bosses or white bosses?
Well, that's the individual. Some would rather work for black and some would rather work for white.
Why do you think?
I think that's just the characteristic of the nature, I'll say, of a black person.
But can you think of any reasons why a black person would want to work for a white person rather than for another black person, or maybe vice versa?
Well, I don't know that it would make any difference to me as an individual, who I just as well work for a white colored as a black as I would white. But a lot of people prefer. I mean, a lot of blacks would prefer the white to work for white more than they would black. Mm-hmm. I don't know why, but I heard that remark made.
Mm-hmm. Did blacks manage any white businesses?
Not at that particular time, no, not here.
Mm-hmm. Not particularly owning, but just managing for white owners?
No.
I asked you before about black doctors and dentists. Were there any black nurses?
We had one black nurse I know of. Her name was Johnson. I don't know her first name. And then we had her. But at that particular time, there wasn't a black person working at the hospital. Just recent years that they hired black nurses, janitors, aides. They never had a black person working in the hospital. Because when the war, war number one, we went out to do volunteer work for the hospital, you know, like making salads and doing what we did. And because our club was black, well, they wouldn't let us.
Do you remember any black midwives?
No.
No. Do you remember any epidemics in the 20s?
I don't know if it was in the 20s or not. I guess it was about in the 20s, in smallpox. That's the only thing I remember. Mm-hmm. The epidemic of smallpox, yes, that's the only thing.
Do you remember any epidemics in any other years?
No.
How did white people feel about blacks who helped the sick? Did white people sometimes go to black doctors?
Yes, there was. One particular black doctor had a lot of white patients.
Mm-hmm. What was his name?
Dr. McMurray. There was another black doctor I thought of too after you'd gone, but I can't think of his name now. Did I tell you Dr. Davis? He was a black doctor here. I think I told you.
You told me, I think, about Dr. Martin.
Dr. Martin, yes. Mm-hmm.
What was your basic diet during college? What kind of food did you eat?
I think we ate most. Our basic diet was mostly vegetables, because at that particular time my father always had a garden and we had vegetables.
How often would you say you had meat by?
Oh, we had meat nearly I'd say every other day, every other evening for evening meal.
Mm-hmm.
Especially with chicken, you know. My father was around the farm on Jackson Street, we always had chicken.
Mm-hmm. Did you shop for any of your food at all?
Yes, everything, you know, flour and our basic.
So where did you shop for food?
Well, we had to come in and visit out on the farm on Jackson Street. We had to come in town.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember the names of the stores?
No, I don't.
Mm-hmm. How many rooms were in your home at this time?
In the first year, we lived on the country on Jackson Street. We had six. Most of every place we was 16, 5 and 16.
Mm-hmm. And how many people lived in the house?
Mother, father, and that's 6.
Okay.
We had 4 brothers.
How did you get your household furnishings? I know you said you brought a lot with you, but any that you had to buy, where did you buy them? Do you remember?
Furniture stores, you know.
Mm-hmm. Did you buy? Do you remember if they were bought on credit? What kind of credit did black people have? Was it easy to get credit?
At that time, I didn't know at that time. I was when first came to Muncie, I was about 8 years old, and I can't remember just how that was. I know we had nice furniture.
What about as you grew older? Say around in the 20s?
Well, I think we had got furnished mostly on credit then.
Did a lot of people make their furniture? No?
Not as I know.
Did black people use alcohol and drugs back in those days?
Didn't know what alcohol and drugs and smoking and things like that was.
Where were blacks buried?
Cemetery here on
Um,
Beach Grove.
Beach Grove. Where's that?
It's out south of town. Right out there.
Were there any people who were considered conjurers or healers?
I didn't know.
Do you remember any of the black leaders in the nation in the 20s?
I can't see it. I can't think now. National leaders at that time. I think.
Maybe we can come back. Did you join any black political groups, such as the NAACP?
I belong to the NAACP.
Or the Marcus Garvey group? Did any member of your family serve in the military?
In the States?
Or any time after that?
My brother was very my son served in war number 2.
How did you feel about that?
Naturally, I didn't want him to go. Because I thought that wasn't a war. That was a difficult. That's when he was over in he was in Japan and New Guinea all over there. That's where he was. That was when Japan bombed Pearl Harbor, and that's the war he was in. That was war number 2, wasn't it?
Right. Do you know how most black people felt about their sons going off to fight in the war when maybe they weren't treated fairly at home, yet they went and fought for their country?
A lot of the blacks didn't like it. They thought it was terrible. Then to come back and not be treated fair. But that's when they was fighting in the war and then come back and was discriminated in everything.
Did you vote?
This year?
All along.
Yes, I voted.
Okay. Did any blacks or whites try to stop you or other blacks from voting? No.
Not yet.
Do you feel there were any shady dealings between white and black politicians?
Well, I wouldn't know about that. I never worked in politics, but I heard there's a lot of shady deals put down, but I wouldn't know.
Who were the local black leaders at that time?
Well, we had Mr. Phillips, Tom Phillips was one, and I just don't remember any local black politicians around here. Phillips was not the only one I knew at that particular time.
Were your parents or your grandparents ever slaves?
On my father's side, and on my mother's side, there never was any slaves, because they were all born and raised in Ohio. So on my father's side, my great grandmother, she was a slaveholder's daughter. My grandmother, her mother was a slaveholder. Anyway, she was white, down in that someplace, down in Mecklenburg, West Virginia.
Do you remember the name of the owner, the slaveholder? Did they ever tell you?
Yes, my auntie told me, but I have forgotten that. Anyway, after the slave owner brought her north, and then she married this clerk, my great-grandfather named Harris. He was colored. She married him. And they had 2 daughters, Martha and Mary.
And let's see, your great-grandmother was from West Virginia?
Mecklenburg, West Virginia.
Mecklenburg.
West Virginia.
Did they tell you a lot about slavery? Did they tell you many stories?
My great-grandmother did. Because after we moved to Muncie, when school was out, we'd always go back to Ohio in the country. They lived in the country and the visiting she always.
How many brothers and sisters did you have? You said you had 4 brothers?
I had it. Yeah. I had 4 brothers. And 1 sister.
That was Ralph and Ralph?
Yes.
E.R.
G-R-A-F-T-O-N.
Ralph and Ralph. And 1 sister and
1 sister, Helen.
Philip?
Helen.
Helen. What kind of work did they do?
Well, they all work in factories. Fred is he works for the government. He's a media inspector. And you knew that at the time?
Yeah.
They were all too young.
Mm-hmm.
Walker was in school, Fred was in school, and Jackson was in school.
Mm-hmm. Well, after school, what kind of job?
They all went in
factories.
Mm-hmm.
Who decided rules for the family in the old days?
My mother. She was that arm.
So she decided the rules for the family, and she disciplined the children. What about your father?
Well, he got along with whatever mother said. He never spanked for anything. I never had spanked in my house in the car.
Were there many blacks and whites who married or lived together?
No, it's just one. I don't know them.
What about as time went on?
Well, I think the time around they did. Probably they're married.
Yeah.
Like they are today.
Do you know any?
I don't know of any right now. I don't know.
Generally, how did the black community feel about this type of thing?
Well, some thought it was all right, and some, because it didn't make any difference to me because I had a lot of fights in our family.
Did many of your relatives here in Muncie, did they live nearby or far away?
Even I
didn't have any of them?
No, just our immediate family.
Where were you married?
Here in Muncie.
Do you remember who married you?
I think Reverend Baker.
Baker?
Reverend Frank. Where's Frank Baker? What is his name? I heard that. I think it was Reverend, I know it was Reverend Baker, but I don't know his first name.
Do you remember where you were married?
I was married at I was married at the parsonage. At Peak House.
Where did you meet your husband?
In the school comes together. School makes together. We went to school, started in school, first grade together.
How did people in your family feel about divorce?
Well, we never just don't believe in divorces. But most of my brothers got divorced, but nobody else ever got divorced.
Did most people remarry after divorce?
Yes, my brothers did. My sister, she got divorced too. She remarried. They did. No, they didn't. He died.
When you were growing up, was there respect for the elderly? Would you say it was much different from the way it is today?
Yes, very much. We was taught to respect elders. And we was taught to say yes ma'am, no ma'am, yes sir, and no sir, and all like that. And we never called no one older than by the first name. We never.
Mm-hmm. Did most men stay with their families, or did a lot of men leave their families?
As far as I know.
What holidays were observed?
Mostly Christmas and Easter. Easter was always.
Mm-hmm. Was it celebrated differently than today?
No, I don't know. We always had the same thing: Christmas programs, and tree, and Easter programs at the church.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, was it more religious?
More religious
than it is now?
No.
Were there many family reunions?
Yes, it was. There was a lot of family reunions, I think, around different places.
Were there any holidays that you observed that you don't observe now? Or any special days, annual events that have died out?
Well, long ago, the blacks used to celebrate Emancipation Proclamation Day,
Mm-hmm.
but they don't now. They don't hear of it.
Was there anything called June Jubilee? No?
I never heard that.
Oh, okay. At what age did your son leave home and start assuming responsibility for himself?
Not till after he finished high school and went to service, and then come back. He went to college, and then after college, he finished college, and he got married.
How did you choose your son's name?
Oh, just, I don't know. Just,
Was he named after anybody?
no.
When you came to Muncie, Schaefer Chapel was the first church?
No, Bethel A&E Church.
Bethel A&E.
That's on Jackson Street. See, there wasn't any church, wasn't our denomination where we lived.
Mm-hmm.
And we joined over Bethel, because that was the only Methodist church here at that particular time. The Bethel A&E Church is the oldest black church in Muncie, oldest church in Muncie. Mm-hmm. That's where we joined. And then after we moved to Whiteley, then they went to conference and asked the bishop, could we have a sister church in Whiteley? So that, you see, a Methodist can't split.
Mm-hmm.
We can't just go and jump up and have a little church here and a church there. We have to have it organized from the bishop. And then that's how come to have Schaefer Chapel. And Bethel A&E Church is our mother church. And we're just a sister church from Bethel A&E Church.
How frequently did your church have services?
We've had services 2 times. We don't have it now, but twice on Sunday, but and once through the week. Prayer meeting on Wednesday and Bible study. And then Sunday school, morning service. We don't have evening services much anymore.
Okay, so that's the way it was back then?
Well, we used to have evening services all the time back there.
Mm-hmm.
At the evening.
Did your family have devotionals?
You mean in church?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and I always had devotionals.
Tell us some of the things your church did for the community.
Well, we had the Missionary Society. They visited the sick and helped the ones that need help. and you give baskets, Christmas time and Thanksgiving time, and send flowers to the sick.
For the most part, how would you say household servants or domestics were treated by employers?
Well, I can only speak for myself. On my job, I was treated just like one of them. Still, they just as nice to me now as it was when I worked for them. They come out here and stay, and went on long trips with them. Just the other day, Nancy was here from Boston. Her two daughters and son, they all come out here. I went to Boston and she was just like I was running and had to do nothing but sit just like I'm sitting now. They waited on me just like I used to wait on them. But that's one family.
Right.
I don't know how about the other.
Do you think it was much different?
Well, a lot of them were different. But this particular family, they were just like that. They was considered, well, she says, I'm of the family. She don't, they just consider me one of the family.
What kind of access did blacks have to public facilities, like the parks?
Well, they were segregated in Houston Park. Couldn't go to Houston Park over here. They had one side at McCullough Park. And now they're all different. But at that particular time, they were segregated.
And what about the bus?
No, the bus was always all right. No segregation in bus. But no segregation in buses, schools, or anything like that. I mean, mixed schools.
Okay. I mean, there was no certain place on the bus that you
No, just one to stay.
Did they have any swimming pools?
No, there for a while there wasn't any swimming pools that black would go to just recently. Now they don't have any.
What about theaters and restaurants?
Well, now you can go to any of them you want to, but at that particular time you couldn't go to any of them. If you went to a theater, you had to sit upstairs.
Was there violence against blacks in your community?
No, we never had any violence.
What would you say were the major fears of black people?
What?
Major fears?
I think the only fear that the blacks had was they had the fear of not being treated on an equal base as the whites. I think that's the only fear that blacks had. They wasn't treated.
Were blacks able to go to court? Were they able to stand trial or accuse someone else?
Oh yes, they had always had a fair trial as far as I know.
Who represented or spoke to them in court?
They had lawyers.
Any black lawyers?
Yeah, Reverend a lawyer brought it was only the black lawyer was at the time.
Were there any black judges? What about black policemen?
That particular time, we didn't have any at that particular time we do now. In fact, no, we didn't have any black policemen.
No black policemen? What about as time went on? Who was the first black policeman? Do you remember?
Who was the first black policeman? I can see the name. Don't seem to be named. But there's John Miller and Saul McAllister. He was George Field. He was next in line for the first three black streets.
And you said McAllister?
Mm-hmm.
What was the first name?
Donald
Donald.
and John Miller and George Field. And those are pleas from the early days. This other plea, he was the first black priest they ever had, and I can't think his name. Jones had one, and that was, I think he was name.
Well, we can come back to that.
Just left me. Been 2 long years.
Did black people have pride in themselves in the old days?
I think so. I think most blacks, especially certain elements, have pride in everything, in their homes and in themselves and in their churches. See, most at that time, everything was used brought up as church.
How did they feel about being colored Negro?
Very proud of it.
How do you feel about being called black today?
Well, personally speaking, I just don't like the word black because I believe either Negro or colored, because we are colored. We're all colored.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the I just wouldn't go along with that black.
How do you feel about being called an Afro-American?
Oh, I don't mind that.
In those days, did people talk much about Africa? No.
Oh, no, no.
Did they ever think about Africa as a homeland?
No, we never talked about it.
Mm-hmm.
Never thought of it as that. Because I know at that particular time when we was in school, when they talk about Africa, but that was just like something foreign to us. Because I know in school when they had geography and they asked race, white, brown, black, yellow. I always said brown.
Mm-hmm.
I never said black. But I didn't like it. I didn't like it.
Do you think black people have pride today?
I think the most of them have pride today. I think the majority of them have pride.
Do you think it's better than old days? Or not as much as in the old days?
Well, I don't know how to answer that because in some ways some ways it's better. The people of today have pride, and then in other ways, the older people had pride in doing what they could do at that particular time with what they had to do with.
In the past, how did black people feel about working for other black people?
Well, I think some of them thought it was all right. Some of them liked to work like that for other black people.
But do you think they prefer to work for white people?
I don't know. I couldn't answer that. The only reason why they would rather work for white people would be because maybe their wages would be higher or something like that. Because the majority of blacks at that particular time didn't have the means and things to hire another black person.
Do you think young black children were ashamed of their race or color when you were a child?
I don't think so. Do you think any of it?
Do you think this is so today?
You know, I think the majority of blacks today, of the young generation, they have a grudge against everything. I think that's why it's so much trouble.
I know I asked you this before, but in the past, how did most black people feel about fair-skinned blacks?
Well, a lot of them, if they like to, the most fair skin, they like to stay with the fair skin. A lot of them, most of them. But then some of them didn't make any difference.
Did you ever hear about the Blue Vein?
Yes, there was Blue Vein Society in Boston. Blue Vein Society Church in Boston.
Did they have one in Muncie? Were fair-skinned blacks usually better off or worse off than other blacks?
No, I think it's found on the same basis.
So their jobs weren't any better?
Jobs weren't any better, home wasn't any better.
Do you think this is so today?
Well, I can't see any difference today because most all blacks have nice homes, especially the younger generation coming up today. They all have lovely homes.
When you were a child, did you have any colored dolls or toy soldiers?
I think I had one colored doll.
Mm-hmm. Did your brothers have any colored soldiers?
Mm-hmm.
Or any other little colored toys?
No, I can't think of any.
In the past, how did men and women fix themselves up when we go out? What kind of hairstyles and cosmetics?
Well, they had so many different hairstyles. I can remember one time they wore their hair puffed here, two puffs on the side. I can remember that. And then another, then they wore their hair stood back with two balls on the side, on the back.
How did people straighten their hair or
Yeah, you straighten your hair. I don't know when they begin to straighten your hair.
What about cosmetics? Do people wear a lot of powder?
I don't think so.
So it was less than today.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the new hairstyles and cosmetics today?
I don't care for them.
About, you think?
Beads and everything. I don't care for them.
What about afros? Do you think that women should wear wigs?
Well, I think it's all right if they like them. I don't like them, but I think it's all right if they like them. I just don't like them. I never wore one. Let's go on my head.
What about makeup? Do you think women should wear a lot of makeup? Or?
No, I never did believe in a lot of makeup.
What do you think about eyeshadow?
What I do like that.
Do you remember any of the old Negro newspapers?
The Chicago Defender and the Pittsburgh Courier. I used to have stay with Pittsburgh Courier because my cousin wrote for the Society for Pittsburgh Courier, but I got rid of all those. In the Indianapolis. I forget the Indianapolis movie was just paper they had. I forget the name of it. But they have a movie of paper in that. So the Chicago Defender and the Pittsburgh Courier and the Indianapolis.
How did you get the newspapers? The colored newspapers?
But then we had to either have them sent to us, or we had to go to the newsstand and buy them.
Have you ever heard of the Afro-Americans?
Yes, I heard that. I've heard of it.
And the Journal and Guide.
No, never heard that.
What about the Black Star Press? You skip the feet. Do you remember any black leaders in the nation?
No, that's what I couldn't remember.
It was the black leaders.
Oh, you mean of today?
Back in the day.
Oh, I don't know how far back that.
Well, just any of you remember.
Du Bois, what was he?
Okay.
And,
Ever hear about Carter?
that's right, Carter. And he was the leader of the NAACP for so many years.
Wilkins?
Wilkins.
Think of any other?
Oh, Bethune. Miss Bethune.
Do you know what they were fighting for?
Well, I think, well, Miss Bethune, she had the college, and she fought for rights, too, civil rights. And so did Wilkins fought for civil rights.
Okay.
Langston Hughes, he was a Negro of course. I read a lot of his things. poetry, especially the Negro Mother. I love that. I don't even know I can think of that now.
Any other books by Black you read?
I've read a lot of that.
I mean, any that stand out?
The Negro Mother stands out to me more than anything. I really not as vivid as it should be.
Well, did you agree with these leaders?
Yes, I did. Especially, I like a lot of their writings and their statements they made.
I guess we look at the pictures now.
Now, I imagine that Miss Boer gave. I imagine she had a lot of these pictures. But now that's the ingenue. Did she give you one like that?
Yes, I think so.
Or did she give you one like that? That's another one of the ingenue. That's the ingenue at a dinner party.
You wouldn't remember the years they were.
Way back when. And this is our nursery school that our club sponsored. That's our nursery school our club sponsored.
What's this? Is this Muncie?
Montana.
Some more pictures of the ingenue?
No, this is the singing group that one of the singing groups. That's not the main singing group that I was in, but that's one singing group I was in.
And what's the name?
We didn't have a name for that one. That was just called the Friendly Singers. But we had my other group. I was thinking there, so I've got a picture of that someplace.
And
that's the Benedict.
Okay.
They were honoring Mom and Pop's Burden. No, they wasn't. No. Yes, they were. That's Mom Burden, that's Pop Burden, Stella Burden, and Anna Burden. They were the oldest members of the Bachelor Benedict.
Oh, okay. Burden, B-U-R-D-E-N. And what is his name?
Arnold.
Arnold.
And that's the ingenue when we had having a dinner, a formal ingenue lady.
Did you have a photo every year?
Every year for a while.
Was it on a special day? Or?
Yeah, it was always in the spring. Probably had a spring like that.
Was there such a thing as a debutante ball or coming out?
No, just the annual private ball we had. That's my mother.
Oh.
That's about our group sponsoring the day nursery. 1945. That's when we had our tag day for the day nursery.
What was this?
Tag. That's the tag day we had. The ingenue when we first started the day nursery. We had tag day downtown, so we could raise money to start our day nursery.
Oh, so you sold it.
And that's my mother, the most popular mother.
Oh, boy.
That's another write-up about her. Seemed like that's the only thing we had today. And this is the way the color news was printed in the paper at that particular time, way back there. That's where the color news was.
Oh.
That's where it was in the paper. Color news. That's the only way they had putting anything in the paper. But they say color news, and George Lucas was the editor for the color news.
Is she still alive?
No, she he was our minister and his wife, and those are the trustees and the stewards of Schaefer Chapel.
Oh, okay. And what was the pastor's name?
Reverend Gibson.
Gibson.
Oh, he was a wonderful minister. He died in California.
And around what year was this about?
That was around about in the 50s.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Now here was our most popular group. We sang together for 13 years. We traveled everywhere. That's
Sacred
called
Air.
the Sacred Air.
Mm-hmm.
We traveled and traveled and traveled.
And do you remember around what year this was taken?
That was taken in about 1950, I imagine. Maybe. Yeah, about 1950.
Pretty small.
Is it?
So you have a pretty smile.
These are just pictures of, see, I directed a course in northern Michigan for years, from 1929 on. And these are just, you might want to, these are from every year that I directed that course in Michigan.
Oh.
Northern Michigan.
So these people are from Michigan?
Those people are from everywhere.
Oh, okay.
They were volunteers. You see, I'll explain it to you. You see, when the white people go up there to, the wealthy people go up there to this resort, up Petoskey, Michigan, and Harbor Springs and Mackinac up there, they bring all their help. Well, all the help, you know, they belong to various churches in their own hometown. Mm-hmm. And when they come to this white resort, well, there wasn't any church to go to. So we asked them, we passed this little town, Harbor Springs, Michigan, and with this church, and we asked the pastor, could we have service there on Sunday? So he gave us the opportunity to have 1 hour service on Sunday evening from 6 to 7. And so we started having service there from 6 to 7 on Sunday evening. And it grew so, and the people would hear us singing and all, then they would come and want to come in the service. And it grew and grew and grew till we had that volunteer course. And then the last Sunday in August, before the season closed, we'd have this big program, and thousands of people that have to turn them away from this church to come to this big program. You keep looking through, you can just see how many people are there. And it grew like that. And so finally, after it grew so large, well, then the pastor let us have the service from 7 to 9 every Sunday night. And the more white people come to bring the black.
What is his name? This is a nice picture. Everybody's got a different expression.
He was our pianist for a long time. Oh, I can't think of it. I can't.
Is he from Muncie?
No, he's from he's from Midland, Michigan,
mm-hmm.
and she's from Ohio, and she's from Richmond, Indiana, and that's Mr. Clark from St. Louis, and he's from St.Louis, and that's an Indian girl. Mm-hmm. She's from Petoskey, Michigan, and of course there I am.
Mm-hmm.
We just got through singing at church, and we were just going over some songs.
Oh, okay. And this is Sacred Airs also?
Yes, we was up in
Oh.
we was up in Michigan. We sang all up in northern Michigan, and we was at the.
Oh, this is the one I was looking at. Oh, this one.
We was at Gaylord at the park there, and that's the Sacred Airs singing with in the background of the other course. Was this course, you know. That was the highlight of my life when I directed those courses. That was my sole ambition.
And what was this?
Well, that was we sang at a tuberculosis sanitarium, and that was the president of the sanitarium. He come to congratulate us for coming there to give them a program for all the sick people.
And what about this one? Is this an award or something?
Yes, she was from Ohio, and she was congratulating me for the wonderful program that we had given that year.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember her name?
No, you asked me to say. I have to look in my book.
Did you have the titles? They were all big.
We haven't had a special photographer taken.
Definitely this one. This is in Pulaski?
This was in Harbor Springs. This is that church I was telling you about, where we asked could we have service. And this was the last night. This was the fourth Sunday in August. We always had our last program. And we was presenting the church. We made enough money during that season and on the last night to remodel this white church up there.
Oh.
If I had had time, I would have went upstairs and got all the write-ups in the papers about it.
Mm-hmm.
I have them all in newspapers, but the white paper wrote about this. That was stuff with money we gave the church.
Was there anybody else from Muncie in Sacred Airs?
Yes, let's see. I take them. You mean they went up there every summer?
Mm-hmm.
No, yeah, Lucille Lytle. She went every summer, and my sister went some of the summers. Mm-hmm. But when I take them on a tour, they were all there. They rent us a home up there, and we just stayed there and toured all around. We had our own station wagon with the name on it and everything. Oh yeah, that's when we just now that's the Mr. White. I think his name was. And that's my sister.
Mm-hmm. Is she still alive?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. This little girl lives in Richmond. Mm-hmm. No, she lives in Indianapolis, and she lives in Richmond, and he lives in Dayton. Mm-hmm. It's been so long, you know. My memory just gets away from me.
Mm-hmm. Is your sister married?
Uh-huh.